Hello and welcome to the Tie-Dyed Therapist. I'm your host, Richard Killian. And in today's episode, I have my dear friend, Glenna O'Keefe, and we're going to talk about missing cats and what you can do about it. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us today. I wasn't going to do this episode until I actually found my cat Jeebus, who went missing on June the 30th. But I decided that even though it's been a miserable summer for me, and we're still waiting to get Jeebus back somehow, some way, I thought it would be a good thing to try to do something positive with something that was kind of negative. So that's why I decided to do the episode. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what we've done in the last month or so to try to find Jeebus. And then I'm going to read some things that I found from a rescue shelter that I thought was really helpful and really rather inspiring. So let me just start with the timeline. So it was the night of June 30th. It was a Friday. It was a little over a month ago, and we were getting ready to go on a vacation on July the 1st. And somehow Jeebus got out of the house. He went missing sometime in the late afternoon, early evening. We searched most of the night trying to find him when we discovered he was gone, and nothing. A neighbor did spot him on her deck, but by the time we actually got the message and we went over to the deck, he was gone again. So this was a really traumatic thing because I was torn. I wanted to just stay home. I didn't want to go on vacation, but my husband had reserved a lot of things. We would have lost a lot of money. We needed the time off. We needed to go. The good news was I did hire a cat sitter who came to the house every day. She was planning on coming anyway. So I had her put food outside. I had her put a bed, litter box, porch light, anything that we could do to sort of lure him back. So we were away for 2 weeks and then came back and he still wasn't here. The other thing that I did in the first 2 weeks was I posted the fact that I had lost the cat. There's a platform in this neighborhood called Nextdoor, and it's actually for the Westchester County where I live. And I posted a picture. I told people where he went missing from. Lots of people responded. Lots of very kind people were trying to give me leads. None of the leads panned out, unfortunately, but I appreciated the fact that people were looking online and responding. So then when I got home after 2 weeks and Jeebus was still gone, I have to tell you, I was pretty devastated by the whole thing. I really felt very depressed. I felt like Jeebus was probably dead and I should just move forward, move past it somehow. And then you had encouraged me to reach out to an animal communicator. And you gave me a list of animal communicators at the time. And I found one by the name of Tim Link off of your list. And this was an interesting thing because Tim Link is an animal communicator who's based in Georgia. And he has a YouTube channel. He does post on YouTube once in a while. You should check him out. But I reached out to him, and after I read his bio and his stories, and in fact, one story was really interesting because even though he's based in Georgia, he was able to locate a missing cat in the middle of New York City, in Bed-Stuy.
That's amazing.
And he located it through this means called dowsing. He does this mental dowsing where he locates, he pinpoints the location of where the cat's energy is. And so he pinpointed it to this building. He had the owner go to the building, talk to some of the residents. It turned up with nothing at first, and then one of the people in the building called back and said, "Oh yeah, we found your cat. It was an vent or a duct of some kind. It was hiding." And what was interesting about the story was that when the cat was returned, I believe it was the owner that was so impressed with Tim's services that she contacted her friend Gwyneth Paltrow, who was writing a magazine for Goop, which is her brand. And so they contacted Gwyneth Paltrow to write an article on Tim. So after I read all of this, I thought he would be a great person to contact and at least try this. I mean, I was a little skeptical, of Animal Communicator, but I have to say I was pretty impressed with what had happened. So I contacted him via email. I sent him some money. And within 2 hours, he wrote me back. He said, Jeebus is still alive. His energy's still out there. And he did a dowsing. He did a pinpointed area of where he thought Jeebus had been, at least. And what was more important and really kind of amazing was he described to the T what the property looked like. It was a very interesting property. It had two houses side by side with a road between them. He described that. He described what each house looked like. He described the gardens behind the houses.
Yeah.
And of course, when you and I went there,
it was exactly
as he had said. So,
and the guy's name was Angel.
And he was Argentinian.
But of all names.
Yes, an angel. And he was an angel. He was really sweet. And he had a dog named Blanca. So, anyway, so we followed Tim's lead. Jeebus could have been there, but we didn't find him. And Angel and the neighbors in that area were going to keep their eyes out for Jeebus. What Glenna did for me was we created posters that she laminated and printed and laminated for me. She also did about 80 flyers for the neighborhood, and we canvassed the entire area.
Yeah.
So 80 mailboxes got flyers about Jeebus, and there were posters put on the poles outside, and we talked to neighbors that day. And I have to tell you, I was so impressed with and touched by how kind people were through this time.
And we put them by stop signs, remember that? Or
yes.
Where you would pause when you're driving.
Yes.
Which was good too.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did get some calls from those signs, But anyway, you were so instrumental because I couldn't have possibly have done all that canvassing by myself. And, in a lot of neighborhoods, at least in this country, people don't want you going on their property. There's all kinds of things that go on here. People get their mail stolen from their mailboxes. They get deliveries stolen, even though there's cameras out. People are cautious and a little skittish about strangers coming to their door and saying, "Hey, have you seen our cat? And can we look in your shed? Can we look under your deck?" Nobody really wants that. So the flyer was a great idea because what it did was it gave people the information they needed about Jeebus, and then they could look and search their own property because they knew their property, and we asked them to think like a cat and to think about where would a cat hide and where would a cat go to stay safe. So I have to say that between the situation with Tim and the other situation, which I'll talk about in a minute, it encouraged me. It gave me hope. It gave me faith. And of course, people's kindness and love and compassion was also really helpful. It made me realize just how many missing animals there really are out there. I mean, I always took it for granted. I never gave it much thought because my animal was home and I was happy with him. And I was rather insensitive to the whole thing because it didn't impact me You know, when something doesn't impact you directly, you don't really think about it, right?
And a lot of people had stories. There was that one guy and the one guy who went way out of his way. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He got the staple gun,
Right.
and he really said, this is where you should put it in our neighborhood. And
Right.
yeah,
And I'm going to tell the other neighbors.
I'm going to tell the other neighbors. Yeah.
Right. So people really went out of their way for us, and we genuinely appreciate that. So the other thing that happened, though, that was really critical for me was I was looking for Jeebus online through the SPCA, and then there was this group called Rescue Right, which is a rescue group in Bedford, New York, which is close to where we live. And I met this wonderful lady named Penny, who's the owner of Rescue Right. And she gave me a lot of encouragement. She said, please don't give up your search, because cats are incredibly intelligent. They know how to protect themselves. They do all sorts of things to keep themselves safe. And please don't give up your search. But what she also did was she printed out this article online called Psychology and the Missing Cat. And if you look that up, if you Google that, you look it up, you'll see all these tips for finding lost and missing pets. And I wanted to share with our audience some of the things that this article said. I'm not going to read a lot of it, but I am going to read some things that I think might help people that are trying to do a search for their pet. So they talk about, it says, in the missing cat cases I have worked on since July 2000, the largest percentage involve an outdoor access cat turning up missing very soon after a house move. And this is because cats are territorial by nature, and if they don't perceive the new home as their territory, they may try to go back to the old house, right? So the article makes a real distinction between whether you have an indoor cat or an outdoor cat. This was about an outdoor cat. And then it says here the second common most cause of missing cats have been indoor only cats escaping through some access, accidentally, either left open or access unknown to the owner. The motivation to get out is often territorial or simply opportunistic. Seeing another cat or a squirrel outside the window may spur a cat to single-mindedly defend its territory. A door accidentally left ajar may offer the indoor cat new and exciting scents, too compelling to resist. But the thing is that if it's an indoor cat that's never really been outdoors, it becomes rather overwhelming rather quickly, right? So they go outside, they're sniffing around, they're checking things out, and then they realize they don't have access to the house, right?
Right.
So the thing that it says here, the other thing I wanted to read was to understand the profile of your cat's personality, which is really the heart of the article. So they talk about this thing called the classic complete cover cat. And it says here, this is an indoor-only cat that thoroughly adores its special people and pretty much could let the rest of the world disappear if it had the choice. It has shown fear of the outdoors, runs from strangers, and new cats. When outside, this type of cat will find the surroundings overwhelming, will not be very resourceful in getting food or water, is least likely to show itself, not likely to approach a stranger, right? So when you have a cat like this, it goes into complete cover mode. And I think Jeebus is a lot like this. What Penny from the rescue place told me is that the owner of the cat could come out with a rotisserie chicken and the cat still wouldn't come out for the owner because they're too freaked out. So that's one profile. And then it talks about another profile where the cat is friendly, although outdoors, living indoors, they're friendly to people. They're not as scared of the surroundings, and they may travel further away. What they're really talking about is if your cat is indoor only, very timid, or sick or injured, the chances are higher that it's very close by. It could be perhaps a mere 1 to 5 houses away. On the other hand, if your missing pet has been an outdoor access cat whose normally very regular schedule has been suddenly disrupted, the chances are higher that it has become inadvertently trapped, relocated, stolen, hurt, or ill, and therefore may not be as close by. So it's really anybody's guess when or how far a cat goes, right? Depending
Right.
on their profile, depending on the experiences they've had. And then finally, what I'll tell you about is some tips that could help, right? So it says here to start your foot search immediately. The sooner you start searching, less distance your pet will have traveled. Thoroughly search the surrounding property. Continue in the direction that your pet was last seen heading. Go door to door, starting close by initially, moving farther out later. And then sometimes pets hide in the house that they're living in. You have to make sure your house is checked over. It says bring a flashlight and check everywhere, in closets, cupboards, all accessible spaces inside your home, behind washers, inside pipes and culverts, in heavy brush, sheds, basement crawl spaces, open garages, under decks. Your pet may be stuck somewhere extremely frightened or injured and lying low. For lost cats and other climbing critters, check trees, roofs, attics. One of the things that I've really learned from all this is that I've had so many people come to me and say, I lost my pet. I lost my dog. I lost my cat. I've lost several cats. I've lost several dogs over the years. I mean, you were telling me about your family, right?
Yeah, they moved. The cats moved, not us.
Really?
Yeah, they one cat went 2 doors up, and they weren't cat people, and the cat was very persistent every day, and they started feeding the cat, and all of a sudden they started letting the cat in, and then after about a year they moved to Colorado from upstate here in New York, and they took
the cat.
They were like, the cat's been here basically, and the cat didn't want to be home.
Right.
Yeah, we've had a few cases like that. My brother had somebody in France that this cat used to move periodically, and when they moved back to the States, they brought the cat with them. And then the cat decided to move to my mother's, which was on the same property.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Right.
so they just periodically do that too.
Sometimes they switch owners.
Sometimes they switch owners. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, if they aren't, if they don't have access online to things that are posted, or they're not paying attention, and a cat comes into their property, they try to feed it. They try to be nice to it. Sometimes they adopt it. And
Right.
They don't know where the cat came from.
Yeah.
They didn't think to call the animal shelter.
Right.
Or
I've seen, like, in small towns, like right before you go in the grocery store, that my mother has that, where somebody will find a cat,
yeah,
and they'll put that poster up instead of missing cat. They'll say, we found a cat, they're here, we're feeding them, which is kind of nice.
I like the message of that, right?
Yeah, me too.
Instead of missing cat, found a
Yep.
cat.
Yep.
Right.
I had a cat that went missing in the city, and I took her out one day, and she was an indoor cat, which was kind of silly that I took her off the leash, and she ran, and she wouldn't come back. But the next day, I usually rattle my keys when I get home, and the cat at the time knew the rattle of keys, so I rattled the keys the next day. She was in this little patch of woods by the apartment building,
right.
overnight, scared,
terrified,
and she heard the rattling of the keys and my name, my voice, and she came running out and never wanted to go by the door again, not even, mind you, go out. She just scared her too much. She was like your cat. She'd never been out.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's as many different situations as there are cats and as there are people. But I did want to sort of close with an idea about things that people could do, things that I've learned how to do, and a lot of it because of your help, Glenna. So I was a little resistant to doing this canvassing, right? I mean, nobody really wants to spend their Saturday putting out
Yeah.
flyers and posters, and I'm talking to neighbors and all this. However, the huge benefit of that is that it's another pair of eyes on different properties that get to see if there's a cat around
Yeah.
that you can't do by yourself. So in other words, I needed the help from my neighbors in order to even try to find Jeebus after so many days.
And you gave him a reward also.
I did offer a reward.
Which for some people, that's the incentive.
That's true. Well,
Yeah.
money's good, right?
Money, some people like that.
But so there was that. So, you got to put a lot of eyes on the problem of missing animals, whether it's dogs or cats. Putting out things that they can smell, that, remind them of home, that they know they're in the right area. Their food dish, their water bowl, their litter box, any sort of piece of clothing that you own that has your scent on it. If you do that, that might be what brings them back in.
Right.
What I've been told is that it's unknown how long it takes a cat to return home. He's been gone now over a month, and I do get discouraged because every day that goes by, I think, well, that's probably it. But I've been told that cats can come home months, years after they've been gone. So I guess we just got to keep the faith, right?
And I think it's also, when you do see your neighbors or people around there, letting them know that the cat is, still out.
Still out
so
there.
that they're still aware.
Right.
Because we still have the posters. You also did the mailbox drops to everybody too. It wasn't only posters.
That's right.
Right. So that I think was really good, and we went pretty far with those.
Yes, we did.
Because cats can go far.
Well, according to Google, a missing cat is anywhere between, 3 to 4 miles from where they live. That's a big area.
That's a big area.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in the last few weeks, people have been really kind. They've sent me lots of leads.
Yeah.
I follow up on every lead that I get. Sometimes I go to properties that they tell me. There was one woman that sent me information about a cat that she saw at this house that it was for sale. Nobody lived there anymore. I went to the property. I walked around the property. The garage window in the back was completely knocked out and easy for a cat to get into.
Yeah.
Out of the rain, right? And then there was space underneath the deck. The porch, not the deck, but there was a porch space underneath that the cat could have gotten in with, there was lattice work around the porch. So there's all kinds of ways that cats protect themselves, take care of themselves.
Right.
And so I'm kind of hoping that Jeebus will have done all of that and he'll show up someday.
Right. And there's a lot of kind people in this world. And so I think a lot of people, we hope and pray.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Hope if you have a missing pet that you keep the faith. And thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.